Alright, so in the last video I talked about how inferiority is one of the core beliefs that's really stopping you from being successful with women. And here are the two things behind inferiority. In other words, these two things, which are insecurity and shame, are like the two barriers. You know, they're what's causing inferiority, and it's the barrier to you feeling equal. Alright, so before I get into it, let me just explain to you what used to happen when I first started to approach girls. So basically I found out about this dating advice, and most of them recommended to go out and to approach many different girls. So here's what basically happened over and over again. I'd go out with a friend, and we would both be kind of practicing, and I'd see a girl that I was attracted to and that I wanted to approach. And the first thing that happened is I got really nervous after I saw her. My brain started to come up with excuses why I shouldn't approach her. Maybe she's walking too fast or she's too attractive. So, I tried to procrastinate, and I tried to think of what I should say to her. I wanted to go talk to her, but at the same time I had all this fear that was holding me back. And then, what sometimes happened is my friend would see me looking at the girl, and he'd push me to go talk to her. So finally, I'd walk up to her. Maybe it was in a bar, or maybe it's in the street or on a cafe, and I still had fairly bad shyness. So I'd walk up to the girl, and I would be feeling nervous inside. I'd be feeling bad, and I'd be feeling pretty awkward. And when I started talking to her, I'd usually be talking with zero confidence, and I'd be speaking way too quietly. So because of all these things, nervousness, awkwardness, no confidence, the girl would usually just reject me right away. All of my first approaches, I would just bomb over and over again. I just get rejected and embarrassed. And, this caused me a lot of emotional pain. And back then, I had many insecurities. I didn't like my appearance. I was very paranoid about people finding out that I was a loner and a loser, that I had no friends or something like that. And to be honest, I thought that my appearance was causing my lack of success. Or maybe it's because you don't have the right car to attract a girl, or you're missing something else. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why people get turned off. And I'm sure you can relate to the situation I just told you. Maybe you haven't tried to approach a ton of girls and you haven't been rejected by them. But there's probably been many times in your life when you felt unwanted and forgotten. You felt like nobody really made an effort to get to know you. This is very common with people who've had shyness and social anxiety. For example, I remember even growing up in school, if the class ended, then people would always go to talk to each other, and nobody would come to talk to me. Let's say I was sitting at lunch, I would usually be the one sitting at the end of the table and looking over at everyone else talking, and nobody would really make an effort to come talk to me. So right now I'm gonna kind of answer this question of why these people in the past didn't seem to really like you. Why didn't people like you? And why do people tend to get turned off by people who lack confidence? And why did I keep getting rejected by girls in bars? And if you are more insecure or nervous, or you feel awkward around girls, and you've tried to approach them before, then you've probably had this experience too, where you kept getting rejected repeatedly. And I'll explain why. It's all in the power of assumptions. And here's something really, really crazy, man. If you really understand what I'm about to show you here, then this could really change your life. The idea is that our assumptions or predictions of what's going to happen in social situations usually come true. What do I mean by this? Well, if you assume that you're going to be accepted by someone, then you usually will. But if you predict that somebody's gonna reject you or disapprove of you, then you also usually will get that reaction. So the key to making people like you is in assuming they will like you. I know this sounds like a paradox, and it's hard to understand how this is possible, but it's really true, and I'll explain everything to you. So one of the biggest ideas is assuming acceptance. Think about it. If I had assumed that the girl would be attracted to me, or at least that she would be friendly to me, then how would I have acted instead? Well, instead of like feeling all nervous and procrastinating and like waiting for my friend to push me to go talk to her, if I had assumed acceptance, then I probably wouldn't have waited like that before talking to her. If I saw a girl that I was attracted to and I assumed that she would accept me, then I probably would have simply walked over in a relaxed way and just said the first thing that popped into my head. I wouldn't have tried to like pre-plan this elaborate conversation. I just walk over, say the first thing that comes to my head, and then she responds and I work with the response, and then the conversation would have gone from there. And this is exactly how guys who are very successful with girls approach them. It's not that they know the perfect thing to say in every situation. It's that they approach, and the way that they approach has this vibe that the girl can see, that they assume that she's going to accept them. I've approached so many girls since I began, and as I slowly began to understand this idea of assuming acceptance, my results really started to increase. From getting rejected, and slowly they turned into not getting these rejections nearly as often. I still get them sometimes, but it's also very, very likely that the girl will be open and friendly because my approach to her communicates an assumption of acceptance. So now I may just walk up to her and I may just very casually say, "Hey, what's up?" So I've approached plenty of other girls since those first rough days, and the biggest thing that determines whether a girl will accept or reject me now is really my own behavior and my assumption of her acceptance of me. And here's the crazy thing. My appearance barely changed. I still look basically the same now as when I was getting all those automatic rejections. It's all in my behavior. And now we're getting deeper into these areas of psychology that most people will never really grasp. You are always unconsciously broadcasting your inner beliefs to the people around you. You're broadcasting these beliefs through your behavior. From the way you make eye contact, to your posture, to the tone of your voice, to how open you feel to express your real personality and humor around them. And people pick up on these signs or cues in your behavior. And these signs that people pick up on actually determine how they usually respond to you. So you are actually at the cause of how people usually respond to you. If you walk up to someone being confident and relaxed with an assumption that they're going to accept you, then that communicates a lot about you. It communicates that you probably have a group of people who already accept you. It communicates that you consider yourself a valuable person and that you're worth getting to know. And it communicates that you believe you have something to offer this person. On the other hand, what happens when you assume rejection? If you walk up to someone feeling nervous and insecure, then what does that communicate? Well, it probably communicates that you think most people don't like you. Otherwise, why would you be so scared? It communicates that you probably don't have a lot to offer. Maybe you're trying to get something from this person or trick them. And it also communicates that you probably don't consider yourself valuable. And if people can see through your lack of confidence or your nervousness that you yourself don't think you're valuable, then why should they think you're valuable? After all, who knows you better than you know yourself? So now let me talk about insecurity and assumptions. Shyness and social anxiety are usually an assumption of disapproval. These feelings of nervousness and anxiety you get before talking to a girl you like are revealing your belief that you'll probably get rejected by her. This assumption of disapproval is a feeling like people won't like you for some reason, or believing that the real you is unacceptable to people. You feel like you need to hide certain parts of yourself to gain people's acceptance. I'll give you some examples of how exactly this assumption of disapproval sabotages you in real life. So why are you afraid to talk to that girl that you like? Well, the fear comes from a prediction that she'll probably reject you. If you really believed deep down that you two would have a great conversation and that she'd be friendly, then why would you be afraid? Another example, why do you find it so difficult to hold conversations, especially with people you don't know that well? Well, the biggest thing that kills you and makes you run out of things to say is actually thinking that you need to say some super interesting thing or funny thing to hold the other person's attention. See? So you assume that the other person will disapprove of you unless you perform for them. Another example, why is it so hard for people who have social anxiety to form close friendships or relationships? Well, since you can't easily relax around someone and put your real self out there until you've known them for a long time, this makes it very difficult to connect because you have this fear of vulnerability, and you'll unconsciously assume that people wouldn't like the real you. So these are just 3 examples of how an assumption of disapproval, of how assuming that people wouldn't like you actually sabotages you, not just with girls, but in general social situations. An assumption of disapproval usually starts with having some types of insecurities. I think the vast majority of people who have shyness or social anxiety, people who feel nervous in social situations or around girls, they have a few different common categories of insecurities. The first category is insecurity about your appearance. So maybe you think you're too ugly, or that you're too tall or too short. Maybe you think you're too skinny or too fat. Maybe you think your teeth are crooked or your nose is too big. Or maybe, like many people, you think that your penis is too small. Or maybe your insecurity is about your lifestyle. Maybe you have no social life and you try to hide it from people. Maybe you think your lifestyle is boring and uninteresting. Maybe you believe that because you're a loner or a virgin, that means that people simply wouldn't like you. I know many guys feel like a huge insecurity because they're inexperienced with girls. Maybe you're in your mid to late 20s or 30s and you're still very inexperienced with girls and you feel insecure about her finding out. And this insecurity actually wrecks your confidence. Another category of insecurities is insecurities about yourself. Maybe your actual feeling of anxiety, nervousness, or shyness itself is what you feel insecure about. So whenever you start to feel nervous, you try to hide it from people. And you don't want anyone to notice when your heart starts beating faster or when you're sweating, shaking, or blushing. It's very, very important to find out your insecurity. You need to figure out exactly what you're worried about people noticing about you. What is causing your assumption of disapproval and sabotaging you? And as a side note, this is something I talk about in the latest version of my shyness and social anxiety system. A lot of people who have more extreme anxiety or nervousness around people actually have something called toxic shame. So this is a belief that you're basically unworthy of love or acceptance. And this belief of toxic shame is often caused by experiences that you had at a young age, like bullying or parental abandonment experiences, or maybe your parents compared you and made you feel like you weren't good enough, stuff like that. As an example, I believe that part of the reason why I had very bad toxic shame and social anxiety when I was growing up is because my parents were working in their business around 6 to even 7 days a week while I was growing up. So I barely ever saw my parents when I was growing up, and I believe this might be what really triggered my own toxic shame. And the thing is, when you have something like toxic shame, it will actually cause you to find things about yourself to feel insecure about. Alright? So here's a quote that I think really sums this up nicely. It's from a guy called Jonathan Berendt, and his quote is, "People who fear rejection usually act as if they have some deep dark secret that would mean instant loneliness if it were discovered." So here's an important question I ask most of my clients. What is the thing that you are most worried about people noticing or finding out about you that would lead them to reject you? Is it something about your appearance? Is it your lack of experience with girls? Is it the fact that you maybe don't have that many friends? Is it because you think you're a loser because you're not successful as you want to be in maybe you don't have that nice of a car, or you don't have that high paying of a job, etc., etc., etc.? What is it? Here's the big shift that you need to understand. People hate your feeling of insecurity, not the thing you are insecure about yourself. People usually don't mind your actual insecurity. So whatever you kind of figured out that you were insecure about, whether it's your appearance or some kind of flaw or your lack of success in some area in life, people actually don't care that much about that. And if you don't believe me, then you should look around. Even ugly, obese people have friends. Even stinky homeless people have boyfriends and girlfriends. I see it all the time, at least here in Montreal. And even people who are completely unintelligent and watch reality TV all day often have a lot of confidence. So no matter what you think your flaw or defect is, you can find people with the exact same flaw who are able to have friends, confidence, and romance. And I want you to specifically look for these examples. I mean, if you're insecure about your appearance, look for guys who are average or even below average looking who have girlfriends. This is something that took me a long time to accept. I fought this idea and I resisted it. I thought that my insecurities, like my appearance, were the real reason for my lack of confidence in a girlfriend. I thought that, it was because I was short or not good looking enough, and that's the reason why I kept getting rejected. I thought that because I was a loser with no friends, that's because I couldn't get a girlfriend. But it's really not true. I realized after many months and studying this area that the key to making people like you is not in trying to totally get rid of these insecurities, or trying to appear flawless or perfect, or trying to fit into some mold promoted by the media for how you should look or how your lifestyle should be. The key to making people like you is being comfortable with yourself first. When you're comfortable with yourself, instead of being haunted by things like insecurities, low self-esteem, and self-shame, then you get rid of the assumption of disapproval that sabotages you. And once you get good at assuming people will like you, and not having all these beliefs that people won't like you for all these reasons, you'll see them respond much differently. you're being comfortable with yourself will come through in all these little behaviors you have, from the way you make eye contact, to your vocal tonality, to the casual way that you can approach people, and people will completely respond to you differently. And not just girls who you talk to, but people you meet in many other situations too. Getting friends, meeting girls, being confident, it'll all become 100 times easier. So how exactly do you get rid of these insecurities? Well, here are some practical steps to take. The first one is vulnerability. I talked before about how when you have an insecurity, usually whatever the thing you're insecure about is, that thing is wrapped in a layer of shame. You have a feeling of shame around whatever you insecure insecure about. And what the latest psychology research has discovered is that the way to dissolve shame about something, about any part of yourself, is through vulnerability. So whenever you feel whatever you feel ashamed or insecure about, you need to find a safe person to share it with. And this is the real reason why things like therapy can really help people. And there's even a lot of men's groups out there where men get together and they just talk and practice being vulnerable. And by doing this, they can dissolve their shame. Vulnerability is one of the big keys to getting rid of your insecurities. When you can find someone that you can confide in, and you can tell them, yeah, I feel like I'm deficient because I don't have that many friends, or I feel like women won't like me because I'm too short. If you can find people who you can share this with, and you can develop this type of open relationship, then it will help you become very, very secure about yourself. And what this is called in psychology is it's called reality testing. You can't really get rid of insecurities just by sitting in your house and by chanting to yourself, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident. You have to go through the process of slowly and gradually exposing your flaws to people that you can trust. And by going through this process of testing to see if someone's going to actually reject you for your flaw, you can slowly dissolve the shame around them. And you should really make a list of all the things that you feel ashamed about. Everything from early childhood experiences, like, for example, let's say you were bullied at a young age and this caused you to feel ashamed about yourself. Or let's say, maybe you're watching porn and a parent walked in on you. This can actually cause people to feel very ashamed of themselves for many years. Or any other experience. Maybe the first girl you talked to, or the first girl that you said you liked, maybe she laughed at you. Any of these types of experiences, if you think back to an experience from your childhood or from the past, and you feel this feeling of shame when you think back to it, then chances are this is a toxic shame experience, and this is an experience that you need to practice being vulnerable about. Hopefully, you have a brother or a sister or a very close friend that you can share this with, but if you don't, then it could really be worth it to sign up with a therapist for 1 or 2 sessions to be able to do this type of vulnerability and reality testing. And even if you don't go to a therapist, you can still slowly work vulnerability into your daily conversations. So for example, if you're feeling nervous at a party, you don't necessarily need to hide it. You can actually tell the person you're talking to, I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I don't know that many people here. And what I've found is that people generally respond very, very positively when you're genuine with them. And here's some other ways that you can get rid of insecurity. When it comes to insecurities about your appearance, a lot of these insecurities are caused by the media. So you look in movies or you look in advertisements, and all the media is constantly hammering it into your head that you need to look a certain way to be attractive. So the media makes you think that you need to be very good looking to be valuable. But think about it. Someone who is very good looking really just got lucky. So when you feel intimidated by some girl who's very good looking, you're basically getting intimidated by someone who just randomly got lucky and she got the right genes. Would you ever think that a lottery winner was superior to you? No, probably not. So one of the keys to getting over your insecurities about your appearance, let's say you're not the best looking guy, and one of the keys to stop being intimidated by girls who are very good looking is realizing that how good looking someone is does not dictate how valuable they are. And so to do this, you need to kind of create your own value system, and you need to decide for yourself that people who are good looking aren't automatically valuable. They need other qualities in them for me to see them as being valuable. Another way to get rid of shame and insecurity is to get rid of this inner critic, which a lot of people who have shyness or social anxiety have. So a lot of people who aren't that confident, they may have some experience of like getting rejected or feeling embarrassed in a situation, and then afterwards you may beat yourself up over every little mistake you made and replay the situation over and over again and try to think of like what you could do better. And you think this is helping you, but by doing this, you're just reinforcing the shame, and you're just reinforcing this idea that you're not good enough, all right? So you need to get rid of this inner critic. Stop trying to rewind an embarrassing social situation. Just let it go. Let's say you do get rejected or embarrassed. What you need to do is you need to speak to yourself in a more compassionate and self-soothing way. Tell yourself that it's okay, and that this is just an experience that you can learn from, and that you're getting better, from month to month. All right? So instead of beating yourself up and criticizing yourself when you do poorly in a social situation or when talking to a girl, think about how you would talk to a 5-year-old child who was struggling with your problem. You'd probably be very compassionate, and you would talk to them in a way that kind of coached them to be better without being hard on themselves. So do this to yourself, and you'll find your shame and your insecurity going down, and your confidence will actually go up. Another way to get rid of insecurities is through unconditional self-acceptance. You need to accept yourself with all your flaws and shortcomings just as you are now. What you need to do is you need to look for that feeling of shame that you feel around any part of your appearance, maybe your performance or your success in life, or maybe you feel ashamed of some of your sexual drives or desires, etc. Whatever part of yourself that you feel ashamed about is the part that you most need to accept. And one of the things that you need to understand is that self-acceptance is not about giving up improvement. When you accept yourself, it's like the first step to improving yourself. Here's a quote from a very famous psychologist called Carl Rogers. He said that it's funny how only when I accept myself then I can change. So unconditional self-acceptance is not about giving up. It's about taking that first step so you can start to feel comfortable with yourself and to build your confidence and take action to improve yourself in this area of your life. All these methods combined, this vulnerability, the inner critic, unconditional self-acceptance, finding your own value system, all of these are kind of trying to build one primary belief in you, which is all important. And this belief is that you are enough. When you feel like you are perfectly okay as you are, and when you feel that people could like you just for you, then a lot of the nervousness that you feel goes away. And when you have this belief that you are enough, and you have the assumption of acceptance, you're no longer trying to put on a performance or trying to hide parts of yourself to make people like you, to make the girl like you. And it's this belief that you are enough that allows you to walk up and talk to a girl that you like in a much more relaxed way, without that guardedness, with that assumption of acceptance that's all important. And this belief is actually what's gonna kind of really shift your success with women. In the next video, I'll go into this even deeper, and I'll explain how eliminating these insecurities and shame and building the belief that you are enough will not just help you to become more confident in social situations, but it will actually give you one of the most attractive qualities a guy can have, which is non-neediness. So I'll talk about non-neediness in the next video.